And so while all this shit was happening, guys, all this distraction, right, was happening, the U.S. conducted an airstrike against Iran-backed militia groups in Iraq and Syria, between Iraq and Syria at the border, right? First of all, the United States is illegally occupying both Iraq and Syria. Facts. And Iran is another nation that they have been illegally occupying as well. And they always go to the excuse of Iran. Iran is involved, so we have to look into this, right? So, okay, so the U.S. on Sunday conducted airstrikes on facilities along the Iraq-Syria border, right? Mm-hmm. And this is from the Pentagon. At President Biden's direction, U.S. military forces earlier this evening conducted defensive precision airstrikes against facilities used by Iran-backed militia groups in the Iraq-Syria border region. The Pentagon said the airstrikes targeted operational and weapons storage facilities, which Iran-backed militia groups Kataib Hezbollah and Kataib Said al-Shuhada, KSS, used to engage in unmanned aerial vehicle attacks against U.S. troops in Iraq. As demonstrated by this evening's strikes, President Biden has been clear that he will act to protect U.S. personnel. Given the ongoing series of attacks by Iran-backed groups targeting U.S. interests in Iraq, the president directed further military action to disrupt and deter such attacks. So the Pentagon said this. The Department of Defense added that the U.S. is in Iraq for the purpose of assisting Iraqi forces in their fight against the ISIS, or Islamic State, saying that they sent a clear message of attack. They said that the strikes were both necessary to address the threat of and appropriately limited in scope. As a matter of domestic law, the president took his action pursuant to the Article 2 authority to protect U.S. personnel in Iraq. So this is, of course, right before there's the consideration that we just went over, the consideration to repeal the AUMF, which of course was related to Iraq, guys. So this is what we were talking about. We were talking about the legislation with Jonny that Jonny had out, and now this happens. Tell me how Joe Biden has been less of a warmonger than Donald Trump. I mean, look at the police budget. Look at the money for the military. Look at the money we just gave to Israel. Look at the funding for the military industrial complex as a whole. And then, of course, look at the legislation he's trying to pass through when it comes to this fascistic takeover. So it's really scary, fam. And this all happened and people didn't bat an eye.
Yep.
They were like, oh, what? Oh, again? Okay.
Well, I mean, first of all, the statement in itself is false to say that it's Iran-backed militias and stuff.
They don't know that.
In Iraq, there are more Shia than Sunni. Right. You know what I'm saying? And these are the groups that oppose Al-Qaeda. These are the groups that opposed ISIS. These are the groups who opposed any form of the mujahideen that tried to fight fanatics that tried to take over this land over here. So the fact that we're kind of spinning this right now, and it's once again, it reminds me of Americans. George Bush didn't know the difference between a Sunni and a Shia, right? And the American people went along with it. You know what I'm saying? And so they're going to go along with this right now. And the way they're spinning this, it's awful. And fam, to answer your question, he's been worse in foreign policy than Donald Trump. We knew it. The amping up of what happened in Ukraine right off the bat with Russia was disgusting. What's going on in the global south, disgusting. What's going on with El Salvador, disgusting. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, across the board, he's been worse than Donald Trump when it comes to foreign policy.
Yeah, and this isn't to say that he's better or worse than Trump. What we're trying to tell you is that this whole idea that people were mitigating damage by voting for one side or the other is completely just ridiculous. And at the end of the day, Joe Biden isn't calling the shots. Neither was Trump. Yep. And so when you understand that point, then everything else starts to fall into place. When you understand that they're just like puppets for the military and the Pentagon and these state agencies, then you're like, okay, how, of course, Joe, who can't even think for himself, is actually not in charge. Of course, these agencies are the ones in charge. And so it just really goes along with how America is so easily distracted. And so the media, the reason what's happening with Biden now is worse is because of the media, because the media isn't covering it. The media is trying to portray this as a good thing. We needed to do this to defend our democracy. And that's why it's more dangerous under a Biden administration, because of the media pacifying everything and allowing this cryptic fascism. And because of people like, really quickly, Johnny, Cori Bush, who is is just so fucking goddamn excited for legislation that is going to take away more of our rights, right? She says, tomorrow we're unveiling the People's Response Act to transform public safety in our country. We're going to need all hands on deck. Are y'all ready? Like, she wants to continue pushing this Orwellian legislation from January 6th, right? That was used from January 6th to take away our rights and under the guise of white domestic terrorism. It is predictable, as we said.
Yeah, and she had nothing for foreign policy on her webpage from the get-go and whatnot. And that's what we get right now. We get more detachment from the progressive crowd from foreign policy. And then the wokeness comes in. That's what they're using to justify their war movies. Oh, we're going out to bomb people who don't believe in gay rights or gay marriage, and they're against abortion, and they want to, they don't want to legalize marijuana, and you know what I'm saying? So it's like this woke leftist. Forget about the fact that a lot of these countries in the global south are economically left. They want to give more rights to workers, to give more everyday people fucking resources so they can live. That doesn't make a difference, in fact. They're against gay marriage. It's a form of American exceptionalism, and it's disgusting that they get away with it. And I know what you guys pulled up over here, right? You're going to play this? Wesley Clark? This was one of the things that really changed me, and you were like, holy shit. We have psychos that are really driving the bus, that are in control over here. They already have a plan out there. And how come this didn't shock the public? How come this didn't get people more engaged? How come this didn't get progressives more engaged in foreign policy year?
It got memory hold, and it's stuck on RT now.
Oh. We got to bypass the memory.
Iraq, not Iran. I knew why, because I'd been through the Pentagon right after 9/11. About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who had used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." I said, "Is it classified?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, don't show it to me." And I saw him a year or so ago, and I said, "You remember that?" He said, "Sir, I didn't show you that memo. I didn't show it to you."
And you can pull this off when you don't have a well-informed public who doesn't pay attention to foreign policy. When people say our foreign policy is our domestic policy, man, it's moments like this. I mean, it's disgusting. Because as he's saying that, you're thinking millions of people who will be murdered, maimed, and their lives destroyed. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
Any final comments before we get on to your area of expertise?
On the attacks of, on Syria and Iraq border.
I mean, we told you on Slow News Day back in immediately after the election, whatever that episode was, that we had Vanessa Beeley back, and she had just written an article called "The Trump-Biden Doctrine for Israel Going Forward." And Vanessa said, because the Biden administration is coming back, because he's part of the gang that started the illegal war in Syria, that it's going, like, everyone in country was just prepared. They were just they were 100% afraid of and expecting at any moment, upscaling what is best described as settler colonialism at the point of a gun. And it's coming from Israel, it's coming from the UK, it's coming from France, and it's coming from the US. And people sit there and act like Rojava is somehow not like a complete and total CIA built and led and orchestrated operation within the green zone of the U.S. military's illegally occupied territory in Syria. This is where your anarchist utopia freedom fighter experience happens. Really? Okay, gotcha. Yeah. But I mean, go look at anything Vanessa Beeley's written over the last 7 months. Look at any interview that she's done with us because she enjoys the show. Yeah, and you will have heard this being discussed. It's disgusting that there's no outcry, no form of semblance of resistance to this. Obama killed the anti-war left. You would think that someone further to the right than Donald Trump in Joe Biden would bring it back with shit like this. This is fucking George Bush cowboy shit.
Yeah. And that's why I think the people, the independent media people who said it was okay to vote for Biden over Donald Trump and then referring to the foreign policy aspect, but not deserves to get hit in
Shout
the face.
Out to Eva Bartlett, who just sent me a DM this morning of a screenshot of one of those people.
Yes.
Like it was prescient. It was just prescient.
And they deserve to get hit across the face with a giant mackerel.
They know who I'm talking about.
Yes, we know.
No,
but
we know. We know. And
giant mackerel.
And Vanessa Beeley did tell me that actually in one of the interviews I had with her. She said people are more afraid of a Trump, of a Biden administration here because of everything you just said. Like, I mean, it's just. It's so true. And again, the media plays a role. They propagandize people into not caring because these idiots just follow, even the ones who profess to be progressive, they just follow these people that repeat the same talking points, but with more perfect brand slogans that indicate that, oh, we're better, we're different, but they're really not. And so that's why, that's why this is happening.
Yeah. But before we get to the next video, just a couple more comments, too, on that as well. I mean, I'm no fan of Donald Trump, but we all remember that, like, whether it be theatrics or the real thing.
I mean, I think he's part of this whole
Iran
thing.
That one time when they were egging him on to bomb Iran when they shot down the drone and stuff like that. But even still, it would take Donald Trump about 3 more terms. You'd have to add on terms for him to equate to the mess and the terrible decisions that Joe Biden has personally made when it comes to war.
Okay,
when it comes to war.
So I'm going to push back on that just a little bit because Trump did assassinate their most beloved and well-respected military figure in history. Yeah, and Soleimani. Under the flag, under a white flag, under a ruse of, parlayed conversation, and we thought we were going to World War III before they told the country about COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
We were all at No War on Iran protests 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now, but like the whole fucking country was at a No War on Iran protest, and then 2 weeks later, nobody was allowed to leave their house.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, that's how this pandemic, whatever you want to call it, guys, has been weaponized against us.
Let's make sure we're still
from the moment the election was happening. Oh, coincidentally, Bernie Sanders was winning. Ooh, the next day, what happens? A set of events, and then the come on, guys.
Yeah. And I'm not.
That's all I'm gonna say. Come on, guys. We're not even on Rokfin now, but I gotta say those things because that's it's obvious now at this point. people have been talking about it for over a year now, but it's fucking obvious.
And I'm not making excuses for Donald Trump. I'm just saying Joe Biden has had a lot longer time in government of 47 years to make bad decisions, including pushing the regimes
we wouldn't
of
have
Iraq,
Trump
of Ukraine.
without Biden.
Exactly. So I'm just saying, to me, the only decision was none of the above, not either one of them.
Yeah.
That's it. Bottom line, simple, whatnot.